Here's my review of Lovecraft Country. We follow Atticus Freeman and Letitia Lewis in search of Atticus's father as they're traveling cross country in 1950s America. And this is, I thought, a really good show. As going into it, you would expect like a lot of Lovecraftian horror, and when the Lovecraftian horror is there, it is amazing. The CGI is great. It is horrifying. The design of the Lovecraftian monsters is great, but it is mainly a drama set in the 1950s about like kind of the racial divide of the country of that time, and it's really good. And it just kind of gets you thoroughly invested in all these characters. I think really good, especially like with Atticus as he comes back from the war and the Korean War that he fought in, and you get to see flashbacks to him in the Korean War and how he fell in love with his girl. And there's a bunch of really interesting things like that, all tied up with like this Lovecraftian horror. But at the center of it, it's just these really emotional episodes. And the main villain of this show is a woman called Christina Breathwaite, who's basically trying to search for this Lovecraftian power in order to achieve immortality. And the show is only 10 episodes, so you don't get that much development, but she's also fine. But I think that this show really does like succeed during the horror, especially in the first episode. Like the Lovecraftian monsters, they're just so disgusting because H.P. Lovecraft has such a unique design of the way he does his monsters. And I was just thoroughly engaged through all of this. And even though there is an ongoing plot, you could watch any of these episodes, I think, just as is. Like, I think the flashback for when he was in the Korean War was really good. And that was a horrifying because you see how he meets this girl in the Korean War, and then she turns out to be a Lovecraftian monster, and just a horrifying scene with the tentacles coming out of her eyes and just horrifying things like that. And the show, like I said, the show is a horror show, but it's also really dramatic, and it is very gory, so keep that in mind. But overall, I just thought it was just really engaging throughout. As for how the show ends, I mean, Christina, who's the villain, like, she's trying to open up this portal and try to get all this Lovecraftian power, but she does fail, but she does survive, as Atticus does not. And I just thought that this show was really good all the way through. Or I meant, George does not survive, but Atticus does, who's like his uncle. And I just thought that this was just a really good show overall, and just with great horror, especially in the first episode. Great emotional beats, although I just wish it was kind of longer. I just wish I got to see more of it. And I probably am missing out a bunch of details because I can only do 3 minutes now. But I'm missing out a bunch of details about the show. But overall, it's a really good show with really great emotional moments. Talks about the racial divide of the country during the 1950s and just a ton of horror. It's great.